gonna wait a few minutes for some friends to join live. When you're here, make sure you say hello, because if you can't tell, I'm really nervous. Also, I'm never on time for anything, so this is huge for me. So welcome. I see a lot of people getting on, and that's so exciting to me. You have no idea. Hi guys. Thanks for being here. I just want to give a quick hi, Mom. I just want to give a quick disclaimer to anybody who might be watching this now or catching the replay. If you are triggered by bullying or certain traumatic events, I highly just advise you I'm going to be talking about some of that stuff. And hi, Maria. And I just don't want anyone to feel sensitive about those things. I just want to say that up front. If you do join in the middle and I'm talking about that, I'm sorry. So the reason for this live is essentially over the last year, I kind of disappeared off of social media entirely. I had a really rough year in 2019 personally, and with pretty much like every aspect of what I had going on between work and personal and family. And I finally, just a few months ago, I decided that enough was going to be enough, and I was going to, advocate for my own happiness. And that's kind of what this story is about, just sharing my personal journey from what I've been through. A lot of people don't really know that I was bullied very heavily when I was in middle school and elementary school. My high school is, in a nice part of town, but unfortunately, there's mean people everywhere, and that's just a huge thing that I've realized is like the way that you make people feel says a lot about yourself, and I stand by that so much because I know how people made me feel when I was younger. So I'm gonna just share how kind of my past, I realized, came back full circle for me in 2019. There was a lot of stuff that I hadn't really dealt with that I went through when I was younger. So essentially, when I was younger, I had a huge gap between my two front teeth, and a lot of my close friends know these stories. And I got bullied very heavily for it. I mean, I'm talking like kids would say, "Oh, did you shop at the Gap today?" And Gap was really cool back then. So I absolutely did not wear the Gap sweatshirts. I stayed far away from that. And another example is that, and some of these are just like, they get ingrained in your brain, but when I was on the bus one day, a kid said, "Oh, Brittany Shaw, I would love to, kick a field goal between your two front teeth." And this stuff was traumatic for a young, I was in elementary school, and I didn't know how to respond to some of this. Like, I was always kind of taught, like, treat others how you want to be treated, and I was pretty quiet. I was always bubbly, but I pretty much kept to myself. I stayed in my own lane when I could. So the bullying for my teeth went on pretty intensely for a while, and it got to the point that right before 8th grade, I was desperate to get my teeth fixed. Like, I did not want to go in 8th grade with that smile. I smiled with my mouth closed in every picture that I could. It was mortifying for me to show my teeth in public. And I almost felt bad about complaining about my teeth so much, because my dad has a gap tooth, like he did, like I got it from him, and and that's popular now too. Like, models have those beautiful smiles, but that wasn't considered the norm or beautiful back then. And so I just complained that I wanted to get it fixed. So I went to the dentist before 8th grade. I begged my parents, and the dentist said, you still have 7 baby teeth. Like, you cannot get your gap fixed until you lose these baby teeth. And I was, what can we do? So they said, you can get the 7 teeth pulled if you want. I said, let's do it. So I got 7 teeth pulled in 2 days so that I could start 8th grade without a gap. That's how desperate I was to not be tortured anymore. And essentially what happened was I ended up with these 2 huge wires going, and I have pictures, because for some people they never really understood what I was talking about. So this was my smile. after I got those braces put on. And so essentially it really didn't get much better for me when I went back to school. I had 2 huge wires and a bunch of gaps, and since my gums were like getting inflamed from pushing my teeth together, I had to get laser gum surgery. And so it was like the whole thing was, and it was all about because I didn't want other people to bully me. And that's why I cannot imagine what it's like for young kids right now with social media, because I know how intense people can be in public. So I really feel for young kids on the internet these days. But so I worked through I got my braces on, and when I came up to my junior year of high school, I was so excited to get those braces off. I wanted them off so badly before my senior portrait, and so I was like, this is gonna be my year. Yes, that's right, you guys know that. I did. I was team closed mouth smile, like Bossy said. Here I was. I always smiled with my mouth shut. Like, you were not getting me to smile if I could help it. So I was a junior in high school, and I was like, this is gonna be my year. This is gonna be it. I'm getting my braces off. I'm blowing everybody out of the water. And so that summer going into junior year, I got my braces off, and I was in a situation that I definitely should not have been, being that young. My friend and I, we were down the beach, and we met a group of older guys. They were in college at the time, and I was going into my junior year of high school. So these guys were juniors in college, and I really don't ever share this story much. Only my very close friends know the real story about this that I've told them, but I knew that this was an important part of sharing, like, my story of why I am doing what I'm doing now. But so we met this group of guys. They were juniors in college, so I didn't realize then, obviously, I'm like, I can do whatever I want. But being a junior in high school to a junior in college is a huge jump, and I realize now that I myself was in a junior in college once. I understand how much of a difference in maturity and everything that goes on in college, like, that I had no business being up there visiting for a weekend. These guys who I met that last summer, and I was very naive, and I am not, this is in no way justifying the actions of that group of boys at all. But I understand why, that I essentially I lied to go up there with my friends, and I'm just saying that it was just a place I shouldn't have been. So I went up there and I was drinking pretty heavily. It was a local college to here, and so I essentially, to put it in polite terms, like, I got very taken advantage of when I was up there. I was a junior, and it was more I couldn't tell you now if it was how much I drank, because I was young and I didn't have any tolerance, or if something was put in my drink. I have no idea, and that's really besides the point. But, like, I understand now why young girls, you're in high school, stay with the high school friends. But so essentially, when I woke up from being passed out, the guy who I went up to visit actually had another girl over. So I can't tell you how mortifying and shameful and used I felt that weekend. We were supposed to stay the whole weekend, and obviously that is not what happened. So I went back to school that following week, and I shared this story with a group of friends, a guy friend specifically, who I thought I could trust, who I was very close with. And I told him the real story. I said, this happened to me. I got taken advantage of. I don't really want to tell anybody, but I feel this way. And so I thought I could trust this person. And the following week, and I came to realize that this person who I shared this with actually had, I guess in some way, some sort of crush on me, or felt some sort of rejection from me. And that following week, and it kind of fueled his fire to go and share what I told him with a group of people at the school. But he didn't share the real story, which is, I think, the most hurtful part to it. And so I was walking up with my lunch tray one day at school, and the cafeteria, we had a 2-level cafeteria, and my friends always sat up top. So I'm walking up with my tray, and I felt like I was in a movie. There was a sports team used to sit at a long table all together, football players, and everyone starts chanting this word out loud. And I'm not going to repeat what they called me, not because I'm ashamed of it, but because I don't want the conversation around this live after to be, can you believe they called her that? I want it to be, can you believe that people could be so mean to somebody? Like one individual, one girl with a whole table of guys with entirely the wrong story. So I was already feeling shameful. So they start shouting. I have no idea that this is about me. So my friend at the time, he leans over and he's like, Brittany, you know that they're saying this about you. They're saying that, you know, this story happened to you last weekend when you went up to this college. And so that's why they're calling you that. And I was blown away. I was like, that's not what happened to me. I got totally and completely taken advantage of. And now my shame and what I'm dealing with on the inside is being glorified like it's some joke to everybody. And so I left the lunchroom and I was like, you know, maybe it's going to blow over. Maybe this is going to be, you know, just a today thing. And unfortunately, it carried on for weeks after this. We had in our school, you had to walk kind of through this center area, which is what was called the Eye. There was a big mural there. And to get to everyone, like all the other wings, you had to walk through this main space. So I was walking through and they started chanting it at me in the hallways. I had to start walking outside, go around to my classes. I tried to obviously have a voice and say, you have the wrong story, that's not what happened to me. And I just got, yeah, of course you're gonna say that, okay. And so I just stopped even trying because it was such a traumatic experience. I tried to transfer high schools and my dad, you know, I couldn't tell my parents what actually was going on. I couldn't tell them what happened to me when I went to a college. They didn't even know that I went to visit as a junior in high school. I couldn't tell them that this awful experience happened to me. And now all these people who I go to school with are chanting at me in the hallways and spreading this lie about me, about a traumatic experience that I haven't even worked through yet. So my dad was like, you're not going to private school. Like, we pay public school taxes. You're going to the public school. You know, bullying happens. You'll be okay. Like, so it essentially just continued on. Most of the people who did the bullying were a year older than me. So I was, needless to say, happy to see them graduate. And when I would tell this story to my friends, even when I entered college and stuff, I mean, they were like, I didn't know that stuff like that happened besides like in the movies. Like, I didn't know that people could be so mean. And so when I got to college, essentially I was determined to find a group of friends that I could fit in with, that I could be myself around. And so I joined a sorority. That was honestly the best decision of my life in college because I didn't know what I was going there to study. I was undeclared when I went in, and I was just going by like my parents' beliefs, like, you know, you finish high school, you go to college, you graduate in 4 years, you get a 9-to-5, you invest money, you live a happy life. And I was like, I don't even know what I want to go to college for. Thanks, Meg. I'm lucky to have found you guys too. It's like, it hurts my heart because like, before I met, and like that's the thing too, I would get when I wanted to join the sorority, I had a lot of people, you know, like, oh, you're gonna pay for your friends, you know. And honestly, in a way, we all pay for our friends. You all pay to go to school. You all, you know, your parents pay the taxes for you to go to high school and all that. And like, in one way or another, you're paying to be where you are. And it was honestly the best. Those girls are still in my life today, and they helped me through some really hard times. It was the first time, I think, in years that I had really felt accepted, or that I didn't have to, you know, pretend to be something I wasn't to be accepted. And I told a lot of them these stories. They know these stories, but I didn't tell my mom even actually until yesterday. I was like, I'm going live. I hope you can join. Hi, Mom. I was like, I hope that you can join, but this is just so you know, this is what I'm gonna be talking about. And she was like, I had no idea that you went through that. So after, I joined the sorority, that was a great decision. And I found that what kind of happened throughout college for me was any attention that I would get from, guys, like I felt like, my worthiness was based on what they thought of me. If they thought that I was pretty, then I must be great. If they didn't, then, I wasn't. And if, to get guys to like you, it's like, it was an awful, and I didn't realize how low my self-esteem was. I had no idea what I was struggling with during that time when I was going through it. I just was like, this is part of life. This is like what we do. So I got through college. I had some relationships, weren't great. Obviously, I'm not with them anymore. Taught me lessons. It is what it is, and that's fine. But so essentially to the now, and now that you know like my background, I was at a job for 8 years. In 2019, I was a bartender and a restaurant manager, and I loved it. I was graduated. I was not going to a 9-to-5. I'm not a desk person. I love to interact with people, and so I was there for 8 years, and it took me a while. Like, I was so intimidated when I started, and it took me a while to feel like I fit in. And after 8 years, you feel like you're at the top of your game. You are like, I know the ins and outs now. I know everybody. I do the interviews. I train people. I do the social. Like, it was like my spot. So in the beginning of 2019, we found out that they were actually closing that restaurant, and that kind of threw me off my stool. I was like, closing, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? This is all I know, and where am I going to work? And so we worked through those last few months there together as a team, and a lot of those guys too, are still some of my good friends I talk to all the time. And I didn't realize what I was kind of going to get into, losing that sense of personal identity that and say hi if you guys join. Say hi, because it definitely takes a little bit of like pressure off of me because I haven't shared this really with anybody in a long time also. But so I finished out that last couple months, and I decided to stay with the company because, like most of us do, it's scary to start something fresh and new. It makes us uncomfortable, so we just stick with what we know. And so I went through a couple job transitions that year, did training, to stick with the company, and a lot of it was I was not getting what I was promised. I was promised a certain amount of shifts. I wasn't getting them. Hi Melina. I essentially was told one thing, and I was losing money driving 40 minutes down there, working until 2 a.m. and I was exhausted for advocating for myself. Like, I was like, I really care about what I'm doing, but like I also need to care about myself more. Hi, Lynn. I need to care about myself more. So I ended up, and well, I guess kind of what happened with the bullying thing in the past is when I first transferred to this new location, I was the new girl. Like, I was back to being the new girl, and no one knew me, and I got a lot of who is she, why is she here kind of situation, and I felt like a huge outsider. And I actually broke my foot when I first started training there. So I was working in a 3-story building, and for a long time I blamed everything else for why my life was so shitty. Like, I blamed that, like, my friend who jumped on me, broke my, like, it wasn't his fault, it was an accident. And like, I was like, I have to stop blaming everything else that's going on in my life and just use it to better myself. I have to stop blaming everybody else, because I wouldn't be in this job and struggling with a broken foot if I pursued a passion of mine. Like, I just was always doing what was easy. So I found myself really struggling to fit in there, and I didn't really understand that a lot of that feeling of like not fitting in was from my bullying from my past. Like, that mentality kind of came back to me, and one of my good friends who is actually in my coaching program now, that I'm working with my own coach, and that's why I'm so passionate about this, is she's like, a lot of traumatic events actually get stored in our nervous system, and it might have been years since we experienced a similar feeling, but then when eventually you do, your nervous system recognizes that, and you feel like a lot of those same feelings, and that's why it was so intense for me in 2019. I think I just lost my entire sense of personal identity. I was like, I don't know what to do, where to go. I knew long term the restaurant industry like was not for me. Like long term, I want to have a family one day. So nights, weekends, holidays, working for somebody else's dream anymore. Like I was like, I am so unhappy. Like shortly after college too, and I feel comfortable sharing this now because I feel like I should just get it all out there. But shortly after college, I got prescribed Adderall, and that really rocked I'm already very anxious. I have serious anxiety, so that skyrocketed the anxiousness, and I definitely was taking way too much of it. The doctor moved my milligram up, and I started to feel like no one's gonna like me if I'm not on this. Like I'm not gonna be confident enough if I'm not on this. Like I need this to get work done now. And I forgot like that before this I was so bubbly and so real, and like so I finally, now I can happily say that like I have not taken my Adderall now, and I mean I'm going on like 5 weeks. I've never felt so good. Like I've never felt this like free and happy and like genuinely excited to start my day. I didn't realize how much it was amplifying my anxiety, how much it was actually holding me back from being myself around people. And for so long, I didn't want to even try and get off of it because I was petrified to gain weight. I am a huge emotional eater. So I had gained and lost 15, 20 pounds multiple times through hard points of my life. And I was petrified to get off of it because I was like, I know I'm going to gain weight. And I just got to the point I was like, you know what? I can lose the weight, but I'm going to lose myself if I don't get off of this. So I'm happy to say that I have not taken it in going on 5 weeks. And I genuinely, I don't know. I mean, I really connected with my coach because she shared a very personal story around that a couple years back. And I didn't know, reading it years ago, that I was eventually going to join her program all these years later. We actually went to high school together. So that really brings it full circle. And she has been such an amazing impact in my life. And hi, Stacy. I never would have connected with Stacy if I didn't join this new passion, like that group, and this new passion of mine for helping uplift others, because I met Stacy through reaching out to her through Instagram, asking if she would connect with me to answer some market research questions. And so thank you, Stacy, for being here. It means a lot. And I saw Irma up there and Abby, so I'm so happy to have you guys here. So fast forward then in the restaurant situation, and it didn't help when my hours went from closing at 9 p.m. to suddenly working until 3 a.m. In the new restaurant, because I was just taking more Adderall. Like how to be awake, how to get through the next 12-hour shift. I would work 2 to 2 if I was on bar. If I was managing some nights, I would get out at like 3:30, 4 a.m. and it was exhausting. I wasn't living a normal lifestyle, and I essentially became a shell of myself. So during this time, side note, my relationship that I was in was fairly new at the point of all of this kind of happening in my life. My boyfriend is younger than me, so we're a couple years apart, and little did he kind of know, or me, that when we started what was supposed to be a fun, new, bright relationship that I was so excited to get into, that his almost 30-year-old girlfriend was gonna be essentially thrown off of her stool of everything that I knew. And I did what I always did, and I wanted somebody else to pick me up. I wanted somebody else to help me. I wanted him to comfort me. I wanted him to make me happy. And it got to the point where he was all I was leaning on anyway, and which put a lot of pressure on our relationship too. I stopped taking care of myself. I stopped working out. I was sleeping in all the time. Like it was awful, and it became such a toxic situation. And I'm happy to say that since I've gotten myself back, things have changed dramatically with every relationship in my life. My relationship with my mom, with my dad, my friends. I finally reached out and started connecting with my friends again, because my social anxiety during that year got so intense that I was like, I couldn't answer phone calls at some points. Like my phone would ring and I would think of every excuse not to answer it because I was like, I'll call them back, and then I would feel guilty for not calling them back, and it was just a cycle. So it's a little piece of that, but if you know, it's just that old saying, like, if you don't love yourself, like, you can't look for love in others. Like, I was looking for it in all the wrong places. I was measuring my worth by what these people who didn't even know me, if they accepted me at this new job, and that was the wrong way to go about everything. And so as I transitioned for the third time that year to a new restaurant job, because serving margaritas was my thing then, I was totally at a loss. I was like, I'm gonna train again. Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. This process went on for like 9 months. I didn't know what to do. I didn't like my job. I didn't like my new job. I felt really pushed around, not heard. Like, it wasn't, again, a situation that it was made out to be, that it was gonna be like. And so during this time, unfortunately, and I'm gonna, as far as it comes to my family, I'm gonna tread lightly because these individuals have their own personal stories. It's not mine to share. But someone very close to me in my family had a medical scare in November of 2019, and and that was really hard for me because my brother at that point had not spoken to me for going on 2 years. And my brother is younger than me. His name's Jeffrey. He's a sweet, smart kid, and he is just angry. I mean, my parents are divorced, so he has a lot of anger surrounding that he never really dealt with. And I think when it came to me, he always kind of felt like the black sheep of the family. So he unfortunately kind of took a lot of his anger out on the entire family at a point 2 years ago, and I had not going on 2 years at this point when someone very close to me had this medical scare go on. And I was like, I want to talk to my brother about it. Like, I need to lean on my brother. And I reached out to him. I would call him, text him, and every text would go unanswered. Every call would go unanswered. And I still, as of April of this year, it's been 2 years officially since I've spoken to him. So the week that I left my job, we had a family meeting to come up, and we wanted to just reach back out to my brother and let him know that we're here for you. We care about you, we love you. We know that, like, this is long overdue, because sometimes people just need a lot more love than what they feel like they're getting, even if other people might not realize that they need that kind of love and support. So that week leading up to having this conversation with my brother, I quit my job. It was 3 weeks before the pandemic, and I was like, I'm so sick of being unhappy. I'm unhappy at home. I'm unhappy with myself. I'm unhappy at work. So I quit. I knew when I went in that shift was going to be my last shift. I was like, I'm done pouring beers. I'm done. I'm going, this is it. So I walked in, I told them, I said, I have a family thing happening this week. I can't do this anymore. I need to go take care of myself. I need to go find what really makes me happy, because this is not making me happy. So I quit that job, and I found myself just totally and completely lost a few months ago. I mean, my friends know, they weren't hearing from me. I went from being all over social media to not at all. I went from attending every gathering I could to making excuses of why I couldn't be there. And I was moody and nasty, and I was not myself. And what I've come to realize is that all of that stuff from the bullying and everything from the past and feeling like I didn't belong, it hit me in 2019 when I lost that job, because I lost my sense of personal identity, and I felt like I time traveled back 10 years. And I had never confronted or really dealt with that. I never dealt with those emotions of really feeling like I didn't belong somewhere. I mean, and that had happened to me when I was younger, and I thought that I was over it, I really did. And then, because I had a lot of people saying to me, it's just a job. It's just a job. You're going to get another one. Who cares? Jobs close all the time. But to me, that was like that was all I knew since college. I was comfortable. Sorry for the car. And I was comfortable, and like I had no intention of leaving. So that whole year I blamed everyone else that I could, everything else that I could, for why I was in the situation I was in. Victimizing is always easier than taking personal responsibility and really looking at ourselves. And if you can't tell, I have an intense sunburn, so I'm also hot because I'm nervous, but so it's always easier to victimize and blame the outside world than really looking at ourselves, because doing the inner work is, honestly, it's one of the scariest things. And that's why we stay comfortable, and that's why we stay stuck, and that's why we stay in jobs and relationships, and we keep toxic friendships in our lives way longer than we should, because it's going to be uncomfortable to see that person at the next birthday party. It's going to be uncomfortable to be alone for those first couple nights. It's, we make these justifications and excuses in our head, and that's what I was doing, and I didn't even realize it for an entire year. I don't need the water, but thank you. Sorry. That was very nice of him, but I actually already have one out here, and I probably just switched. So I didn't realize all of these things about myself that I hadn't dealt with from when I was younger. And I feel like that's why 2019 rocked me so hard. And I finally started to look at myself and look at why I felt like I needed to measure who I was by what other people said about me, and why for so long I thought it would be silly to try and start like a social media anything. I was like, who's gonna want to listen to me? Like who's gonna, like, people are just gonna laugh. And I came to realize, like, my coach actually said this yesterday, like, if you don't show up, then no one is going to be able to find you. And that is so true, because even if this resonates with one person, then that works for me, because I'm passionate about helping other people. I realized that one of the reasons that I love the restaurant industry so much and being a manager was because people felt comfortable enough to come in and talk to me, and I loved that. I loved being that sounding board for people. So I found my coach, and I started really just investing in myself and learning everything that I could about how I could help other people and how I could do something that I'm passionate about and make an impact. And that's kind of, what led me to totally switch up my career. Originally, I went into it and I was like, I want to be an organizer because I love to organize. But I didn't want to organize other people's stuff. I might like to do it for myself, and I'll help my friends, but I didn't want to go into strangers' homes and organize anything. And I was petrified to show up at my first call. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope that people like me. I hope that the girls in my group like me. I was so self-conscious and so nervous. I had zero confidence at that point. And I've just come to, I feel like these past couple months have been, thanks, Joya. I love you so much. Oh my God. I have some of these people I haven't seen in years, and it's just, I've had just so many impactful friendships from the past kind of come back and reach out to me as I've started showing up online, and it's been really hard for me, but I feel like it's for a purpose. I know that there's people out there who have dealt with bullying and felt the same sense of shame that I felt, been through the same things, and it's why I always say that less judgment and more kindness is so important. But yeah, that's essentially just my story of how I kind of came out of 2019. It was really dark, and I decided that I was going to figure out how to use all of the bad stuff that has ever happened to me in my life, how I was going to use it for good, and how I was going to channel it to do something impactful. So that's what I'm doing now, and I've never been happier, honestly. I've learned so much about the way that our minds work and how we are so in control of the way that we think and the decisions we make, that it's changed my life. So if this resonates with you, and if you end up catching the replay, please type below where you're watching from, because I've met some amazing women over the past couple of weeks, and it means the world to me, and it means the world for all of my friends. Thanks, Meg. I love you too. That joined this live. It means a lot. I was really nervous to do this, but I feel like this was the right thing to do too. So thank you to everyone, and right, if you're watching the replay, right where you're watching from, I love all you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really sure. Thanks, Abby. That means a lot to me. If anyone has any questions too, like I can just hang and like kind of look for a minute, but I'm like looking at your comments now and they're so nice. Thank you. Oh, Pam. Hi, Pam. Thank you. Hi, Irma. My friend Irma, who's watching right now, she is actually from Singapore, and we met through me reaching out to people on the internet just to answer some market research questions and help me with my program that I'm launching in July. And it just became a great friendship. It's like, I'm so happy that this started. Thank you. So she's over in Singapore, and it's 7:30 a.m. there right now, so I really appreciate you being here after you probably dropped your little ones off at school. It means the world to me. Aunt Lynn, thank you so much for that. And it's like funny too, I've talked to my parents about this, like I don't know if they named me Brittany Joy because they really thought that I was going to bring joy to others, or because I was born 5 days after Christmas, but either or, I'll take it. Thanks, Brad. I love you too. And my mom, mention your training, Mom, with the logistics. I'm finishing my training right now to be an officially ICF accredited life coach, which I came to find out that you really don't need a certification to be a life coach, which is a little bit scary to me, because I would want to know that I'm giving to other people in the right way, and but nonetheless, I'm finishing up my certification for that, and I am really excited about that, to officially be done and running in the streets on this thing. Let's see. Thanks, Pam. I really appreciate that. Mary, I think you've got the biggest heart out of anybody I know. Thanks, Mary. Mary's my friend in my program that for like my coaching, starting my business, and it's just wild how things happen in your life, and like you meet people, you don't know why they are entering your life, and then you come to find out like it's going to be one of like the greatest friendships, I swear. And I just love her. I talk to her on the phone whenever I can. Hi, Sean. Glad that you joined. Glad to see your name pop up. But all right, I'm gonna end this live here. It went a little bit longer than I expected, but I am so thankful to everyone that came here and showed up. It means the world to me. Again, comment if you're watching the replay. Let me know where you're watching from. And yeah, remember, the way that you make others feel says so much about you as a person. And I really believe that. And thanks for being here, guys. All right.